Religions of the Arabs. Most of the Arabs had compiled with the call of Ishmael and professed the religion of his father Abraham. They had worshipped Allah, professed his oneness, and followed his religion a long time until they forgot part of what they had been reminded of. However, they still maintained such fundamental beliefs, such as monotheism as well as various other aspects of Abraham's religion, until the time when a chief of Khuzar, namely Amr bin Luhay, who was renowned for righteousness, charity, reverence, and care for religion, and was granted unreserved love and obedience by his tribesmen, came back from a trip to Syria, where he saw people worship idols, a phenomenon he approved of and believed it to be righteous, since Syria was the locus of messengers and scriptures. He brought with him an idol, Ubbal, which he placed in the middle of the Al-Kaaba and summoned people to worship it. Readily enough, paganism spread all over Mecca. All over Mecca, and thence to Hijaz, people of Mecca being custodians of not only the sacred house, but the whole haram as well. A great many idols bearing different names were introduced into the area. An idol called Manat, for instance, was worshipped in a place known as Al-Mushalal, near Qadid, on the Red Sea. Another Alat, a third the valley of, and so on and so forth. Polytheism prevailed, and the number of idols increased everywhere in Hijaz. It was even mentioned that Amr, with the help of a jinn companion who told him that the idols of Noah's folk Wad, were buried in Jeddah, dug them out and took them to him. Upon pilgrimage time, the idols were distributed among the tribes to take back home. Every tribe and house had their own idols, and the sacred house was also overcrowded with them. On the Prophet's conquest of Mecca, 360 idols were found around Kaaba. He broke them down and had them removed and burned up. Polytheism and worship of idols became the most prominent feature of the religion of pre-Islam Arabs, despite Ali's profession of Abraham's religion. Traditions and ceremonies of the worship of their idols had been mostly created by Amr bin Luhay and were deemed as good innovations rather than deviations from Abraham's religion. Some features of their worship of idols were self-devotion to the idols, seeking refuge with them, acclamation of their names, calling for their help in hardship, and supplication to them for fulfillment of wishes, hopefully that the idols, heathen gods, would mediate with Allah for the fulfillment of people's wishes. Performing pilgrimage to the idols, circumrotation round them, self-abasement, and even prostrating themselves before them, seeking favour of idols through various kinds of sacrifices and immolations, which is mentioned in the Quranic verses, and that which is sacrificed slaughtered on Nusam, stone altars. Allah also says, "Eat not, O believers, of that meat on which Allah's name has not been pronounced at the time of the slaughtering of the animal." Consecration of certain portions of food, drink, cattle, and crops to idols. Surprisingly enough, Portions were also consecrated to Allah Himself, but people often found reasons to transfer parts of Allah's portion to idols, but never did the opposite to this effect the Quranic verses go. And they assign to Allah a share of the tilth and cattle which He has created, and they say this is for Allah according to their pretending, and this is for Allah's so-called partners. But the share of their Allah's so-called partners reaches not Allah, while the share of Allah reaches their Allah's so-called partners. Evil is the way they judge. Carrying favors with these idols through votive offerings of crops and cattle, to which effect the Quran goes. And according to their pretending, they say that such and such cattle and crops are forbidden, and none should eat of them, except those one we allow, and they say there are cattle forbidden to be used for burden or any other work, and cattle on which at slaughtering the name of Allah is not pronounced, lying against Him, Allah. Dedication of certain animals, such as to idols, which meant sparing such animals from useful work for the sake of these heathen gods, as reported by the well-known historian, was daughter of which was a female camel that gave birth to 10 successive female animals. But no male was set free and forbidden to yoke, burden or being sheared off its wool, or milked but for guests to drink from. And so was done to all her female offspring, which were given to the name Bahira, after having their ears slit. The Wasila was a female sheep, which had 10 successive female daughters in 5 pregnancies. Any new births from this Wasila were assigned only for male people. The Hami was a male camel, which produced 10 progressive females, and was thus similarly forbidden. In mention of this, the Quranic verses go, Allah has not instituted things like Bahira, a she-camel whose milk was spared for the idols, and nobody was allowed to milk it, or a saiba, or a she-camel let loose for free pasture for their false gods, idols, and nothing was allowed to be carried on it, or a wasila, a she-camel set free from idols, because it has given birth to a she-camel at its first delivery, and then again gives birth to a she-camel at its second delivery, or a ham, a stallion camel freed from work for their idols after it had finished a number of copulations assigned for it. All these animals were liberated in honor of idols as practiced by pagan Arabs in the pre-Islamic period. But those who disbelieve invent lies against Allah, and most of them have no understanding. Allah also says, and they say, what is in their bellies of such and such cattle, milk or fetus is for our males alone, and forbidden to our females, girls and women. But if it is born dead, then all have shares therein. It has been authentically reported that such superstitions were first invented by Umar. The Arabs believed that such idols or heathen gods would bring them nearer to Allah, lead them to Him, and mediate with Him for their sake, to which effect the Quran goes, we worship them only that they may bring us near to Allah. And they worship besides Allah things that hurt them not, nor profit them. And they say, these are our intercessors with Allah. Another divinatory tradition among the Arabs was casting of Aslan, featherless arrows which were of 3 kinds, one showing yes, another no, and a third was blank, which they used to do in case of serious matters like travel, marriage, and the like. If the lot showed yes, they would do. If no, they would delay for the next year. Other kinds of aslan were cast for water, blood money, or showed from you, not from you, or mulsak. Consociated in cases of doubt in filiation, they would resort to the idol of Hubal with 100 camel gift for the arrow caster. Only the arrows would then decide the sort of relationship. If the arrow showed from you, then it was decided that the child belonged to the tribe. If it showed from others, he would then be regarded as an ally. But if consociated appeared, the person would retain his position, but with no lineage or alliance contract. This was very much like gambling and arrow shafting, whereby they used to divide the meat of the camels. They slaughtered according to this tradition. Moreover, they used to have a deep conviction in the tidings of soothsayers, diviners, and astrologers. A soothsayer used to traffic in the business of foretelling future events and claim knowledge of private secrets, and having jinn subordinates who would communicate the news to him. Some soothsayers claimed that they could uncover the unknown by means of a granted power, while other diviners boasted they could divulge the secrets through a cause and effect inductive process that would lead to detecting a stolen commodity, location of a theft, a stray animal, and the like. The astrologer belonged to a third category who used to observe the stars and calculate their movements and orbits, whereby he would foretell the future. Lending credence to this news constituted a clue to their conviction that attached special significance to the movements of particular stars with regard to rainfall.